pen to paper. I am Leah Lindeman, author of the Canadian Reminiscence series. You can check out my book links down below in the description box. This is a booktube channel and an authortube channel. Last week we talked to two authors about their work and just talked about the writing process and what that was like. And this week is the booktube channel's turn to make an appearance. So thank you for stopping by. If you are a loyal subscriber, I truly appreciate all your support, your views, your comments. I love engaging with you guys in this way. And if you're new, then thank you for stopping by, and I hope that you do the same, that you like, comment on this video. I want to hear your thoughts. But this week, today, I am so excited because this is my first ever ARC review. And the author herself asked me back in the end of August. End of July or around August. Anyways, point is, she asked me to review her book. And her book was supposed to be out already, but unfortunately there have been some problems with the printer. So I'm hoping that it gets out in time because you'll see from my review why. Let's get to it. I'm reviewing today Rewriting Adam by Connie Mae Inglis. Now, this is a speculative fiction work, which, to tell you the truth, I think this is my first ever speculative fiction work. I was racking my brains trying to figure out if I've ever really read a book that was speculative fiction. Maybe I have ones that had elements of it, but not like a whole work as one. So let me tell you a little bit about the story. The story is about a man named Ethan. He is down on his luck in one of his lowest of lows and seasons of his life. He has just been separated from his wife. He does not have custody of their daughter. He is in the middle of, where is he now? I want to say Thailand, but I'm thinking that this is wrong. I'm going to have to look this up and maybe put this. I don't know what this is. Anyways, he's in Asia, and he is just wandering aimlessly. He goes there because there's not really a reason why, other than that while he's there, he would like to see what his father-in-law has done with the school over there, since that is where his wife grew up and is from. And so he is just kind of playing the tourist, going to all these different restaurants, but he's always alone. And he's wallowing in self-pity and guilt and, oh, woe is me, why is my life like this? And he has absolutely no purpose. He's completely aimless. And then there's this chance meeting with this man named Janice who befriends him. He doesn't have to, but he does. And he's got a very quirky personality. And then they just happen to meet when Ethan goes to that school to look into his father's work. His father worked amongst the indigenous tribes of a certain region, and lo and behold, Janice is there, and he's an archaeologist, and he wants to go to that specific region and dig up kind of the legends, something to do with the legends of those indigenous people from that region. It's really interesting to him. And so since they're both kind of having this mutual interest, Janice invites Ethan to be his assistant on his archaeological dig. And so starts this new adventure for Ethan that he's just kind of dragging his heels through the ground as Janice is pulling him along. He doesn't really want to be along for the ride. And so I believe it's on their first or second day of the dig, he tumbles into a cave. And he wakes up in this dream world that is very different and he's not too sure how he got there. He's at the bottom of this waterfall, I believe, or he's around a waterfall. And he gets out, and there's this man there. And this man looks strangely a lot like his friend, Janice. And he's wearing a strange robe, and he's speaking very strangely. And so starts Ethan's journey into this unknown world that strikingly resembles a lot of what Eden, the Garden of Eden, might have been like. And even the people who live there are called Edenites. And there is the tree of life, and they've all eaten from it. They don't die. It's an interesting tale of how Ethan finds his purpose, not in our world, but through the eyes of these Edenites. So I'm not going to give too much more away. Things that I really enjoyed about this book. Actually, I don't even say, I gave this a 5 stars. I didn't really have anything wrong to say about it, truly. Let me start off by listing why. The language is so colorfully written, especially when she writes about his scenes in Asia and the restaurants. And I believed I was transported there. I could smell the food. I could see the hubbub of the city around me. I could really believe the interactions between Ethan and Janice and their guide later on. Everything was so meticulously and artfully written. I was so impressed. I wasn't too sure. It's very rare that I read writing like that, and it really touched a chord. Just the beauty of the writing. Also, I really enjoyed how she portrayed Ethan and his depression, and that's what it was. And I felt like it wasn't overdone. It was tactfully done, but it was also done in a way you see him going back to alcoholism several times while he's in Asia, and getting drunk and just kind of groggy the next day and not knowing where he's walking or going. And it really lent a lot of character to him. I felt it was very real. And I know because I personally have dealt with depression, severe depression, not so much in my later years now, but when I was 8, and then for 2 years, so 8 to 10 years old, I dealt with heavy depression and suicidal thoughts. And I remember the emotions that she writes about when Ethan is, and he's just completely circling down the same roads of self-loathing and self-pity and just looking at himself all the time and not, turning his perspective outward from himself. And that was very true in my case. Now, maybe everybody's depression is different, but for me, it really struck a bell. And I felt like I could really relate because I remember those being the types of feelings I went through when I was younger. So that was, for me, very realistic. I loved his relationship with Janice. Maybe that's the only thing I could say is I would have loved to have seen more in the real world, their relationship. Janice was just such a quirky character, and I really, really enjoyed it. I think he's one of the quirkiest characters I've read very much recently that was really embellished, but not in the wrong ways, in all the best ways. So I did enjoy him. And now let's get down a little bit to Eden and the Edenites. And I love how, obviously, the Garden of Eden is not real in our world, right? So we have a very, in the Bible, it tells us a very brief picture of what it was like It was perfect. It was Adam and Eve. You had all the animals and the plants and the gardens, and then the serpent comes in and tempts them, and man sins, and everything is broken from then on. So it was so interesting to have this other world, Eden, where in their world, no one had eaten from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. They had all eaten from the tree of life, and they all lived forever. And the way that they try to interact with Ethan when he first comes, because he's just as strange to them as they are to him. And what's interesting, now God was in the Garden of Eden in the Bible. In this book, he's not called God. He's called... he's called the composer. And Jesus, or not Jesus, the Spirit, what we Christians call the Holy Spirit, moving us and guiding us, she calls that melody in her book. So I thought it was so interesting how she used music to explain the relationship that the Spirit has with the Edenites and how it guides them and moves them to make good and wise decisions. And a really interesting that Eden is not completely unspoiled. There are these ghouls or these ghosts or these temptresses or tempters that come into the community, and they do attempt to tempt the people there, specifically those that have not found their song. And so those are the most vulnerable, those who have not fully embraced this new tune that melody helps them find. And so it was so interesting how she used this, this otherworldly structure for Ethan to come in and see all this and to be completely weirded out and not understanding at all. But over time, as his relationship with the Edenites continues to grow, he actually realizes that he has purpose there, that he can serve in ways that he didn't realize he could serve before. And this is where the crux of his transformation comes into play, is that he stops looking at himself so much and how awful his situation is, because he can't go back home. He's stuck in Eden. He actually tries to go back to this waterfall where he first entered, and he can't find it. It's not there anymore. It's a completely different canvas. And so he's stuck there, and the only way he can leave is if he finds his song. His tune is changed. And so slowly Melody starts to work with him and guide him with her peace and her wisdom, and he starts realizing just how wrong he was. He was an alcoholic. He wasn't taking care of his daughter. He wasn't being a loving husband to his wife. And he slowly realizes these things. And as he realizes these things, he is ready to be given his song. And this is when he is ready to go home. I'm taking my video right now.
Hi, everyone. I don't know your names.
It was a beautiful story of redemption, of finding oneself outside of oneself, and the power of kindness and mercy and grace. So 5 stars. It was a beautifully inspiring read that actually weirdly lined up with what I think I needed to read, just even in my personal life, and how I've been discovering a few things there and having some of my own personal epiphanies. So I highly suggest this if you like speculative fiction, if you like inspiration, if you like stories about finding one's purpose. This is one that I highly recommend. Thank you so much, Connie, for sending me your ARC to review. It was an honor and a pleasure, and readers, go ahead and find that book, buy the book. I will have that linked down below for you. So if you like this video, go ahead and press that like button, subscribe, and I will see you all next week.